I'm very much somebody that, and my friends will laugh, but they joke about it with me of like, they can't necessarily pin me down in terms of my art practice because I'm someone that like, when I have an idea, I think more about what's the best vehicle to get the idea out versus like everything needs to be a painting or everything needs to be blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm more like, you know what? Maybe it needs to be a poem or maybe it needs to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not tied to, I have to stick to one thing in order to like be a thing, you know?
Sure.
So it's hard to pin me down in that way at times because it's like, all right, what is he gonna do next? Because last week it was this, and next week it's this thing. So in this case, it was more of me like really sitting with myself in my studio and being like, what is like the most honest materials I can use to tell the stories I want to tell? And going back to what we were talking about earlier, is it just immediately was like concrete of like it's this thing that I'm interacting with constantly in New York, whether I'm walking on it, whether the buildings are made out of it, whether like, you know, it's just always around us. And I had like a aha moment of like, why didn't I ever try this before? Of like, I'm always trying to get these same ideas across, but I don't actually use the thing that I'm trying to talk about. Why not? And it was also like a why not moment of like, why not use concrete? I never used concrete. I don't know anything about concrete, but why not? Why not use concrete?
Yeah.
So then it became like this thing of like uh trust the YouTube University of learning like all the things possible. And then in real time, like going to Home Depot and asking questions and just like, you know what I'm saying? Just like any way I could learn of like what is this material and what do I have to learn about it. And then when I got like a rudimentary grasp of it, then going back to the studio and start experimenting with it. But then also like bringing in past experiences of like, I was like, oh, you know, there's this place in New York called The Complete Sculptor. It's like a art store for sculpture. And I remember this was literally like 5 or 6, maybe even 7 years ago. I like to just do random things. And I signed up and I took a class on mold making, like of your face.
Yeah.
And then when I was sitting there thinking about concrete, I was like, oh, I could probably make molds and then I could maybe fill it with concrete. And then I was like, all right, there's only one way to find out. I gotta buy all of these materials and I gotta try it. So it really was like me just like finding my way through the dark of like, all right, I have all these ideas. I have to start testing it out. Once slowly starts assembling and like, all right, I'm not too crazy. This idea could work. Then it became like, all right, now we have to refine it. All the while, I'm still doing research on like, my big thing is always being intentional. So like, I don't want to make things that look nice per se. I more so want to like, what is the thing? Why should it even exist? Right. So like, again, I was thinking about concrete. Then I'm thinking about like my ancestry of being Dominican. Then I was thinking about all these markings I was learning about on the sidewalks and like what that language was. So it was more of like, how do I create items or materials or pieces that culminate all of those things together between like, again, architecture, design, and art together of like, they don't all have to look the same, but how I create a language for them to be in harmony with one another? So that was where this body of work came from. Was like, if I want to talk about New York and the built environment and all these different things I interact with, how do I create moments using found objects and concrete and this language that I keep seeing in public on the sidewalks to have that conversation with people? And that hopefully, because honestly, some of the research I did, the stuff on the ground, the language actually rooted in, it was created in PG County. It wasn't even New York in the 60s.
Really?
Yeah. So that was really interesting to learn that. I was like, that goes back to like the show's gonna be in Baltimore and this thing was created in PG County. So I was like, there's no such thing as coincidences either. So it's like it was a real full circle moment.